Welcome to another episode of Turning the Table, sponsored by Benchmark 60. Turning the Table is the most progressive weekly videocast for today's food and beverage industry, featuring staff-centric operating solutions for restaurants in the new hospitality culture. My name is Adam Lamb, and I'm a career coach for chefs and hospitality professionals at cheflifecoaching.com. And we have our co-host, Jim Taylor of Benchmark 60. Welcome, Jim.
Morning or afternoon. I think I say that depending on the time zone. How are you?
Right. Great. This is episode 116. What do you stand for, and how would anybody know? On this episode, we'll be speaking to chef advocate and antagonist for the hospitality industry, Jensen Cummings, about several posts he created lately that caught the attention of both Jim and me, because he's using a trigger word that always gets us lit up: values. And we're going to be bringing him in about 30 seconds. And you'll want to stick around, because we're going to talk about 3 things you can do right now to get clear on your core values, how to leverage them to find your perfect place of employment, and also how to supercharge your career growth. And at the end of the show, we have a very special announcement that you're going to want to hear. You'll be the very first ones to know about this, and we're really excited. This hashtag Lunchbox live stream is broadcast every week on Thursday at 12 noon Eastern on the Turning the Table podcast page on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and the Chef Life Coach page on Facebook. You can catch the audio-only podcast version everywhere you get your podcasts in about 2 days. We ask that you share the show with someone you care about and who can find this information useful, and leave a review. And for the audio portion of this hashtag Lunchbox live stream, it's always available on turningthetablepodcast.com/listen. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff. All the links to the videos and other things discussed in the show can be found in the comments in the show notes. And we want to welcome our good friend, Jensen Cummings. Welcome, Chef.
Happy to be here.
Chef, how are you?
For anybody,
a picture of us, a selfie picture of us, and I saw Jim smile because he could see me in the backstage studio being like,
yeah, you were busted. That's what
taking a picture. I love doing it because my setup is like in the basement. I got baffling behind me. I'm on a stack of books, and this is how you get shit done in the content game, you know?
Well, dude, look at me. I'm in the dish pit. You know, what are you going to do? For those of you who have been living under a rock for the last 4 years, Jensen Cummings is a 5th-generation chef. He's got 22 years in the restaurant industry. He's got 400 episodes of his Best Served podcast, which he started in his car with towels hanging over the windows during COVID because he said something has got to get done. Brother, yeah, much respect. There's going to be lots of links for everybody to check out.
They were hoodies that I had hanging around me in the parking lot of my gym.
Right.
We actually, coming up November 18th. Wow, this week, November 18th. Tomorrow is the 3-year anniversary of the launch of Best Served Podcast as an audio-only podcast on Anchor, right? Yep. And then when we really got deep into it was March 18th, 2020. Went live on Facebook for the first time. No idea what the hell I was doing. Was horrible shows to start, but I just needed to stay connected with people's restaurants shut down, right? Yeah. And I was on for 5.5 months, 7 days a week, with an average of 9 shows a week. It was just to stay connected with people. Man, did I learn a lot about what it took to kind of tell stories, create content. And that's how everything built. Just start putting your story out there, no matter how clumsy and awkward it is. And I know we're going to get into that a lot.
We're going to get into that, yeah.
You know, before we dive into a lot of that stuff, though, I was wondering if we could, do a tip of the toke to the folks at Chow, Bobby Mulvaney from Sacramento of the I Got Your Back project. And I was wondering if we could just kind of take temperature of the room. You know, are you rare, medium, medium well, burnt? Jim, what's your temperature today?
You know what? I'm feeling pretty good today. I mean, rare
to medium rare?
I'm not burnt today. I don't think I'm medium well. Could have slept a little better last night. We have a 12-week-old. She's 12 weeks today.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
So she didn't want to look. She was partying all night last night. Good time. But, I'm looking forward to this conversation. I think there's good momentum, starting to be some good momentum in terms of people starting to look at things a little bit differently. And I'm really excited and, what we get into today in our discussion. So, I think I'm somewhere in the medium rare. I'm in a pretty good spot. Yeah.
And I did want to mention that, Jensen, you're a chef, but you're also much more than that. Podcaster, you're a consultant, you're a coach, and you are one of the ones out at the tip of the spear with this hashtag new hospitality culture. And I say thank you very much And I know that you've been doing this, as you said, without really knowing what you're doing, because you lived it, you saw it, and you said it can't fucking go on any longer, period.
Yeah, I mean, I was a part of the problem. I know we'll talk about that. And what's interesting when you talk about taking temp, and yeah, shout out to Chow, Culinary Hospitality Outreach Wellness, John Hinman, Aaron Boyle. What they're doing is, I think, really incredible.
Jasmine.
You know what Patrick and I Got Your Back is doing out there. There's just a lot of entities, not 9 to 5. I know we all collaborate with a lot of these organizations, and the fact that they're asking us to slow the fuck down, take a second, and like check in, I think is something that is incredibly valuable, and we haven't done enough of personally, and how that blends into professionally. And so, what's interesting for me is my default is for sure medium rare, right? Which is, I think, in the kitchen, the default of how you cook a steak anyway. And for me right now, I think I'm a little bit more medium. I think I have so much excitement, and so many great things are happening within the industry. But you mentioned the 12-week-old. We have a 13-week-old. And, and right now we're in like RSV. I can't remember what the hell that stands for, but whatever that sickness is with kids. And, you know, and so we've been like sick on and off for like 3 weeks, and kids have missed school, and you know, all of that's going. I got to go to breakfast with the middle kid who's in kindergarten today, you know, and make a tiny little turkey. So like a lot of exciting things, but also at the same time, sleep deprivation and sickness, and like we've gone through I don't know how many boxes of Kleenex and stuff. So I think it's an emotional roller coaster. It's snowing right now in Denver, so it's just like a lot of highs and lows, a lot of peaks and pits right now, and I think just being aware of that, I'm excited, and I'm also like, fuck, this is like it's not gonna be spring for a minute. So
yeah,
I want to thank you for shouting out to all those people, Jensen, because, you know, I thought, man, why don't we just model this on the show? Let's show other people what that actually looks like, at least a small piece, because it doesn't take any time, doesn't take any money, and yet it's such a great tool for not only gauging where the room is or the container is emotionally, but also this idea about, you know, actually showing, like doing something that the staff can actually see, touch, see, and hear, feel with their heart, that we give a shit enough about them to actually ask, right? So if I got it, Jim, you're medium rare?
Yeah, I think so.
And Jensen, you're about the same?
I think I'm medium.
Okay. Right. Well, I'm gonna call myself out, and I'm gonna say I am burnt and well done. And don't really want to go into a lot of it, but I am not okay, and that's okay. So, you know, I almost lost somebody that I love very, very dearly. So, at the beginning of the week, and the idea that I would never get a chance to tell them how much I love them again, it's fucking killed me, man. So, I'm still trying to process that stuff, and don't want to do that here on this space, because I sit with men in circles and do men's work, and I've got to call out to a couple buddies who are going to help me process this stuff in a safe container, so I can just fucking let it all go. Because I'm finding myself stumbling a little bit, you know, from day to day, or moment to moment. Previous to the call, I'm like walking around the house, like I had no idea what the hell I'm doing. And everything worked out fine in the end. But the 48, 72 hours of constant running and you know, making sure that there was medical attention and legal representation and not knowing, and it took me slowing down and coming home from the mountains. And that's when it really fucking hit me, man. I was just, if I actually let myself get there emotionally, I know I would be undone, man, and not even knowing how to get back. So I went on Facebook and I wrote this post, and I said, listen, I just need to say something. I don't want anybody to ask about, like, I don't need your prayers or your thoughts. Right. I'm like, what I want you to do is I want you to grab somebody and I want you to show them how much you love them. So there's a couple different refrains in this. I'm sitting on my porch in the rain right now, reflecting on the events of the past 72 hours. What I'm most present to is how fragile and precious life is, and how the bonds that tie us together can unravel so easily. All we've come to know and rely on can dramatically change in the blink of an eye on a darkened county road late at night. And nothing will ever be the same after that. And in this moment, I'm a man blessed beyond my current comprehension, because I have another day to tell somebody just how much I love them. And yet I know that this opportunity could just as easily been lost to me for all time on a darkened county road late at night. Grab somebody you love right now, hold them so tightly that they never ever doubt how much you love them, because it's later than you think and time is running out. Some of us won't ever get that chance again. And for them, I grieve their loss sitting on my porch in the rain.
Well, Adam.
Yeah.
Man.
And if anybody would like to have a copy of that PDF and frame it and put it somewhere where they can see it every day, because my experience is that I thought today was going to be the same as yesterday. I thought tomorrow's going to be the same as today, and never once thought that I needed to take a moment to tell somebody how much I love them, because who knows what the hell's going to happen. And then it happened, and it's like, holy shit, man. So cheflifecoaching.com / porch if you want it. It's served me, and like I said, I'm still burnt. So if it's okay that I'm not okay, then I get to put my big boy pants on and ask for what I need, right? Which is something that in our industry, or speaking specifically for me as a man, got no practice at, right? Suck it up, sunshine, keep going. Don't ask, just keep going. And so what I'm going to ask for right now in this space is some compassion, and understanding that I might stumble a little bit, but I'll get back on topic. And I don't really need anything else other than, just some clarity, some transparency, understanding, and know that, all of us have days like this. All of us have moments like this. And if we can ask for what we need, it goes a hell of a lot longer towards our mental and emotional health, instead of holding it all in, thinking nobody gives a shit, that your voice doesn't matter. And that's why every once in a while we want to make sure that everyone else knows that, organizations like the Burnt Chef Project, 4 out of 5 hospitality professionals report having experienced at least one mental health issue during their career. So for free resources in the United States and Canada, you can text HOME, HOME, to 741-741. In the UK, you can text the Burnt Chef to 85258. They have services in Ireland, New Zealand, and Australia again, and we thank them for their stand for our mental health. Because I don't know about you, Jensen. We had a conversation a couple months ago. He said, "You're thinking too small." Like, you're thinking too small, dude.
That I said that to you. Yeah.
Yeah, you said that to me. You challenged my vision, or where I wanted to be. And that's when I came back and said, okay, my stand is that we don't lose another hospitality professional due to suicide because they didn't have access to resources. They thought that their voices didn't matter and that no one cared. That's my mission. And that's why I'm so, kind of tickled that we could actually model that for other people and say, hey, listen, let's just take a second. Let's just check the temperature in the room. What the fuck is going on? Need a minute? I'll cover your station. Whatever that is. So
yeah, I think that's interesting. When I kind of dubbed mental health mise en place years ago, was an attempt to try and reconcile things that historically we're good at and things historically that we fucking suck at.
Yep.
And so our mental health has just been horrible. Our physical health, our emotional health, our financial health has been garbage. It's been absolute garbage.
Yep.
Yet we do some things really well. Our mise en place, setting your stations, right? Those check-ins that we do for pre-shift.
Yes.
Can we internalize those and then also be able to externalize those into methods, approaches, systems, steps of service, steps of operations that allow us to deploy a strength against a historical weakness? And so, can we make it more matter of fact? We talked about, I got your back a few times. He's got the box, right? That just is a shoebox where somebody drops one of 4 colors that anonymously that then expresses kind of where you're at. And somebody can look at that and take a temperature of the whole team.
Right.
And then be able to do something about it and have the methodology and the tools to be able to do something about it. So it can be very matter of fact, right? It doesn't always have to be so heavy, so daunting. Right. So it can be like, here's today's specials, here's low calls, here's 86s, and we're feeling a little blue today. So what are we going to do to rally around each other?
Right.
Go, awesome, noted, got it. Okay, let's deploy the 2-3 things that we know how to do in a situation like this. Let's just have a little bit more of an awareness and not just shout 30 seconds to the window, but take a moment to put your hand on that person's shoulder, look them in the eye and say, are we good in 30 seconds? Be that the actual ticket you're calling, or the dynamic at play between humans.
Couldn't agree
that's
more.
Part of what I'm always excited and interested about when we're able to take, again, what we are historically good at and deploy against things we're historically bad at.
Now, I feel like I've got to chime in here for a second.
Go ahead.
Adam, I mean, well, you know, you and I have been spending quite a bit of time together over the last 6 months. And one thing that I know about you is that you're one of the most dedicated guys to helping other people, especially people in our industry that are, you know, how do we move forward? How do I find a way out of the rut? How do I do things differently? How do I look through a different lens?
Right.
And, you know, you do a lot of work for yourself. You do a lot of work with men's groups. You do a lot of work with chefs. But let me tell you something. From the other side of the continent, you can call me any day of the week, man. Anyone else who's listening, you know, if you need that minute, I know you have people in your life for that, but you need that minute, you call me any day.
Well, and here's the thing, Jim, and I want to say thank you, because I think we all, like, I went from thinking that no one gave a shit to like kind of being overwhelmed with like offers for people like, oh, you can reach out to me. And I also get that, you know, people got shit going on in their lives. So I'm like connecting with people, leaving messages, knowing that they have lives of their own, which kind of led me down the rabbit hole of like this idea of who's your 2 a.m. friend? Like, who do you call when you wreck your car at 2 o'clock in the morning? And will they actually pick up? And how critical that is, that we have at least one person, you know? I was supposed to go to the Bahamas with my wife this week to work on a retreat to cook for her group. And I kept saying, nope, I'm not supposed to go. I'm checking in with my inner guidance. Like, no, I like, it doesn't make any sense. Put her on the plane Sunday morning at 6 o'clock, and 1 o'clock in the morning, that following, I get a text from my ex-wife. And so, you know, sometimes things like link together. So I appreciate that. I need another 2 a.m. buddy. Thank you. Jensen, I know like 2:45 is usually when you're answering your phone for those 14-minute appointments, right?
I've had 4 a.m. calls with you. You can.
I know you have.
Call with me, Denver time.
I know.
You're lucky because it's 6. You guys, it's 6 a.m. for you.
Yeah.
I've even had Sean Walchef, who I know we all know and respect as well. He's gotten on with me. We hold each other accountable, and he's 3 a.m. because he's in San Diego. So more respect. I'm up at 2:30 in the morning, Denver time, and I'm on that hustle, man. But it allows me to then also go from 7:45 to 8:30 and hang out with my boy,
right?
And make little paper turkeys and like do that life. Something I never got to do when I was in the kitchen, right? I missed every wedding. I mean, Betsy had to go stag to every single one of her best friends' weddings and any other family event or anything like that. So the fact that I can get up at 2:30 in the morning, have that moment of solace and quiet, be able to do my thing, be able to put some positivity and some action out into the world, and then be able to take an hour and a half, however much time in the morning to putz around, take the boys to school, like that's meaningful because I have intention to do that. And that's what we're talking about right now. We have intention to be able to speak differently, think differently, act differently, communicate differently. How do we then take that and apply it to the approach, both personally and professionally? That's going to be the trick. That's the unlock.
Yeah. So I completely, you know, because it leads into the topic of the conversation today, you know, values. Like, do you have any, and how the hell would anybody else know about that? But we'll get to that in a second, because I want to round back to, I got your back for a second. Because yes, it's one thing to understand where everybody's at, but they've actually looked at a solution step, which is there is always somebody on staff that's trained to not necessarily be an interventionist, but as like a check-in. And these are the people that are wearing these little purple hand pins. So there's always 2 on staff, so that they can get pointed out in the lineup like, listen, this is totally anonymous, but if you feel like you actually need to spend some time with somebody, that is the person that you want to get. And they're actually scheduled and worked around so that they can be not only emotionally available, but time available. Because during COVID, I've had conversations with service staff in a guest hallway, and this server is completely breaking down, and she's like looking over her shoulder because people are walking past her, and I just look her straight in the eye. I'm like, go ahead. I'm strong enough to hold this space for you right now. I don't give a shit about what they think, right? I can be completely 100% present for you. And that could have gone on for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And I also know that there have been conversations I've had in my office with the door closed and another person present and another person that acts as a facilitator, because I need them to know, like, nothing is going to take me away from you in this moment. Okay, so you need to go where you need to go and let it all hang out, because nobody's like looking away or like making it up that it's not important or shit, we got to get on the line. None of that crap, because an infrastructure is set. And so,
Yep.
you know, the awareness is good. It's a good step. And that's what I love about some of the organizations that we're aligned with and are working with, because they actually have solutions, right? They didn't just say, oh, well, awareness is enough. No, man, awareness is not enough.
Yeah, you got to make it programmatic. It's interesting, the challenge. So you mentioned the challenge I put to you. The challenge I put to a lot of those organizations is how we actually apply it to the business model.
Correct.
Right. And so one of the things that I told them is, like, we are the warehouse now. What Best Serve does, especially through the strategy consulting side, and then hyper specific to what we call workplaces worth working, is developing the actual programs. And so I was like, look, here's the thing. I love what you're doing. It's not easy for a restaurant to onboard that into our programs. It's just not.
Right.
Like,
it's not realistic.
Who I should get what from? Who do I get mental health first aid training from? Okay, we have peer network stuff. All right, there's other resources and training. All right, now I'm working with another group for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. But when do those things happen, and who needs to be involved, and how much does it cost, and how much time does it take? Those aren't easy to be able to put into operational systems.
Correct.
So a lot of those solutions are living in a vacuum right now, and what we're trying to do is apply them to the model, because what we house is the financial aspects of it, the
Correct.
business aspect of it, the operational aspect. So any solution you have, my team, especially Andrew Parr, who's the genius behind all this, I just say ridiculous things, he figures out how to make it actually work, is we can create from end to end. Here's the investment model. Here's how much it's going to cost. We've restructured an operating budget completely to be able to be, matter of fact, the way that we want to do business in the future, not copy and paste the old business model.
Right.
But if I can't figure out a way to bring your solution into existence in an equitable, profitable, and sustainable way, then it lives in a vacuum. And that's part of where we're at right now, is we need to be able to take these amazing solutions and make them actionable and make them part of the business model, because otherwise you're always counting on that one person who decided, I'm going to champion this today for right now because I'm interested, and they leave, and then that program crumbles because it's not a part of the business model. So that's
it's
really
not strategic, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's too much reliance on an individual to carry that torch. And what we want to do is make it matter of fact to the way that the business operates, so that anybody and everybody can contribute in meaningful ways, be it small or carrying the ball all the way down the field, whatever that ends up being. And that right now is the solution that we work on. So we have things like the WBCE builder. We believe that the 4 buckets of investment in your people, your most valuable asset, you guys know, wages, benefits, culture, and education. Mm-hmm. And so our operating budget has those line items. All 346 line items in the budget are meant to be able to invest in all the right areas, not just blindly follow prime costs, not just blindly follow the numbers that Benchmark 60 and Jim look at when we look at the way we're scheduling, because we fucking suck at forecasting. We talk about how much I have to blow up the status quo of quote unquote industry standards that
we're going to go there.
Us. That's the modality that we have to get to. It cannot be a different color lipstick. It has to be foundational.
So I completely, champion all of that, because for me, it comes down to foundational principles. Like, are you going to manage by personality? Or are you going to manage by standard? Are you going to manage by process? And I know that there's a lot of people out there who like look at that stuff and go, yeah, like what? It's not creative enough. You don't have the flair in it. Like, what the fuck? I remember getting challenged by this general manager after they took over. Starwood took over this hotel. They had 65 hotels at that time. Starwood, one of the biggest hotel REITs in the world now. The transition general manager comes walking into the kitchen. Now, mind you, I've got hair down to here. It's a French braid in my back. I've got pencils stuck in like a geisha.
And he just fucking tattooed hippie over here is going to tell me how to do things.
No. He just kind of sidled up to me and he's like, Chef, you do a really great job here. Like what you do is fantastic.
The other way, I like it.
I'm just curious. Do you always want to be chained to the stove? do you want to work in your business or you want to work on your business? And I'm like, what? Like, I'd never heard that before. Did you know the next day I came in and I had my head shaved? I mean, I know that he wasn't telling me to shave my head. He never fucking brought it up.
Sure.
But as a outward manifestation of my creativity and my bohemian lifestyle, he challenged me right up. I'm like, man, I don't want to be chained. And then this gets me to our next point. I love to say why we brought you on, but I always love that in this container, it goes everywhere. I mean, our conversations are always so rich. But I wanted to say that you clearly made a decision to get up at 2:30 in the morning to do a certain thing for a certain time so that you can be present for your children in the morning when they get up. Mm-hmm. To me, that sounds like you've got your fucking values figured out and that you've taken action to actually make those values manifest in the world. I put in the chat 2 links to Instagram videos that that both Jim and I were like floored. I'm like, that's fucking awesome. Talking about values, like, what do you stand for? Like, how do you know? And I said, okay, that's it. Let's do this. And so they're in the chat, but I don't want to take words out of your mouth. Like, why values? Why congruency? Why now? Why are they important?
Now, I mean, it's long overdue. Here's an interesting thing. I have been a part of, owned multiple restaurants where we wrote really cool fucking words in graffiti on the wall that were like, this is what we believe in, and never talked about it ever again. Ever again. But it looked really cool. And we did a press release about it, and the media liked it. And so, again, it has to become foundational to the business, right? So I'm always like thinking about that. I have been talking a lot about my own inequity in the way that I approached understanding what it meant to be a chef, what it meant to be a leader, a manager, a boss, an owner, a representative of hospitality. And so often that happens because we get in this industry when we're 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. We don't fucking know any better. Nobody becomes an investment banker at 17, right? And so we get stuck in that mindset, and we keep treating ourselves like we're 16-year-old kids when we're grown-ass adults, and should be treating ourselves and each other as such. Well, we don't. We're stuck in that place. And so one of the things, I think this really started maybe with Kim Smith's book, Radical Candor, like had me thinking about rock stars and superstars. If you don't know it about, look into it. Superstars have a steep trajectory. Rock stars have a more stable trajectory. And I think about that. And so it got me really thinking about attributes and skills and how we correlate those. And so rock stars are those ones that just show up. They're amazing at their job. Maybe they're a great trainer because they know exactly how to like articulate what it takes to do this one job because it is their sole focus. And a superstar is more like they want to be able to get to that leadership role. They want to ascend. They're ambitious. They want to do all the stations and be able to move up. And what happens a lot is we put rock stars into roles that are for superstars. The rock star doesn't want to be a manager. How often have you seen your best cook, your best server, your best bartender become your worst manager? Because we don't understand who they are. We put them into this linear expectation, and then they struggle, and then they find their way out the door, one way or the other. And so I've been thinking about attributes and skills a lot. I ask people all the time, and this is part of what you saw on social media. All I do is ask questions. That's all I do. That's why I'm good at anything, social media. It's why I'm good at leadership. It's why I'm good at consulting, because I ask questions. And so I ask the question, what do you value most? What attributes are most important to you in a great employee, a great coworker? And I get all of these attributes. People say coachable, team player, motivated, right? That they are punctual, like all of these things. I go, that's amazing. That sounds like a great person to work alongside. Then I'll ask, what do you base raises and promotions on? And they flip. And everything is ROI, skills-based. They have to prove to me that they bring value to the company, that they can be productive in X, Y, and Z way. And then I'll ask a follow-up question. So you must deploy an open book management policy and program, allowing them the opportunity to understand those numbers to the depth and degree that they can then say, here is exactly how I create value within the construct of this business model. Well, I use a lot of fucking big words there, and they go, "Whoa, what?
Right.
No, we don't show them any of the numbers.
Right.
How the fuck would they ever be able to tell you the value that they bring to your business?" And we're telling people that attributes matter, that's what it means to be a great employee, a great coworker, and then they never are allowed to be able to accomplish anything within that construct. And so what you end up with, and I like what Simon Sinek does when he talks about the Navy SEALs, how they evaluate the most dynamic team on the planet, right? And they have an axis. One says performance, and the other says trust, right? And what they obviously want is a person in the top right corner, high trust, high performer.
Mm-hmm.
The worst person is low trust, low performer. Those are easy. Right. But you would think a high performer at any rate would be the most valuable. But they think that a high performer of low trust is the most toxic person you can have on a team.
Sure.
They would rather have somebody high trust of medium or even low performer over somebody who's a high performer of low trust. And what that means to me is we so often know who is the highest performer, who's an asshole that nobody wants to work with, right, but they're the highest paid person because they're the most productive and they've checked more of your skills-based pay and promotion model versus the person who everybody wants to work around, who may be a little bit slower on the pickup, who may not be that high performer, but they raise up everybody around them. Those are the people that I'm the most interested in now, that I overlooked every single time when I was in it.
Totally get it. And you know, when you were talking about radical candor, it reminded me of this really, really old management book called The Peter Principle, which was written in the 50s. And the general premise is that in any organization, people will be promoted to their level of incompetence. Because just because you're a good server doesn't mean you're a good manager, right? And I know, and speaking with Jim, by the way, Jim, I don't think that you're slow on the pickup or anything, but I totally get, if you were on the floor, I would want to work with you, because for me, it's high trust and high skill. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, that top right corner, that's the person you're going for sure. But when it's not clear cut. It's when it's not obvious. Right. And the thing about it is, and you mentioned this, we have all these tropes that we perpetuate of like, you're only as good as your next plate up. Leave your shit at the door. Smile. That's part of your uniform. Right. Like, we are perpetuating those. I hate that shit. And so again, the 17-year-old kid, well, like, that's what I have to do to be successful in this model. And so what I thought I had to do to be successful was exactly that. So I had to be the toughest, the strongest. I had to work harder than anybody. I had to show up early. I had to stay late. I had to come in unpaid. There's a story I tell that used to be a story of a badge of honor that I'm like, fuck, what an idiot. Why did that was the thing. I went almost 7 years without taking a single sick day. And boys, I was like throwing up in fucking trash cans between services, sick, right? Yeah. And I also thought, you know what? I'm going to let somebody else take a day off. I'm going to pick up their shift. I'm going to hold it down. And in those micro moments, there absolutely was a level of respect that that individual had for me, going, wow, you're willing to do that for me, that you're willing to lead from the front. And we have to understand that that is a razor thin line that we're walking. Because the other thing that I did was I modeled that the only way that you can be successful is to do what I do. And what I do is not take care of myself. What I do is show up every single day, no matter what. And what that does, it sets an unrealistic expectation. And people go, I don't want that. And then I go, well, I don't want you to work here then. Right. And so we are creating this dynamic where it's actually a race to the bottom. Even though we think that the trajectory is this way, we're sliding down that scale, not up that scale. And that's why we burned so hot for so long, 22 years that I've been in the industry. And that timing especially was, the Food Network effect of opening a lot of eyes to food and the culture behind it, and also making it into a caricature of itself that I and so many of us bought into, because we did go from being, slightly outcast, I tried to pretend that I was smarter than the cool kids and cooler than the smart kids. It turns
Right,
out I was actually not as smart as the smart kids and not as cool as the cool kids.
Right, because you
When I
clocked
found
the game
kitchen,
and you're not
though,
going to play that, right?
I found them. When I found the kitchen, I found where I could be great at something.
Mhm.
And I was 17 years old. And as you mentioned, 5th generation. So it's my family restaurant. We've had restaurants since 1900. And now I'm like, how do I then apply what I now know to leave it better than we found it? Because now I do have those young kids. Now I'm like, would I want them to be the 6th generation of our family to be of service to this industry? And a few years back, my answer was absolutely fucking not. No chance. And so I had to either walk away, and I did in several ways and tried to. And I decided I had to like triple down. We have to do something different. We have to invest in a different model. And that's what we're building now. Because if I can hold my head high and say, we left it better than we found it, and that my kids, with no pressure from me, can decide to be the next generation or anybody, because we're always trying to empower and educate the future leaders of this industry. It is not the fault of any 22-year-old kid that is entitled, quote unquote, that is not as committed, that is not as dedicated, that is not as motivated, that's not as hardworking. The inequity of this industry, it's our fault as elders of this industry. We built this, and now we're trying to blame them because they're not willing to go through the same bullshit that we did and call that a badge of honor.
Correct.
They're like, why would I want your abusive, toxic job culture and get paid $12, $14, $16 an hour? Yes, I know you lived in a house with 4 people eating top ramen, remembering when you got a raise up to $7.25 an hour. This is me, and I'm going to cast shade on you because you're smarter than I am and you have options, and you're like, fuck you, I'm going to go flip shit on eBay and make $62,000 an hour later. I don't blame them. We have to build something differently, and we have to create the sense of belonging to bring them back into this industry. Because I really believe, you think about culturally in our country, be the Google of your industry. You guys remember that, right? That was hot for a decade. What that didn't mean is that you had foosball tables and bouncy chairs, right? That was a byproduct of the culture. What it meant is you were at the forefront of innovation and culture, of shifting that culture.
However,
they now have been called out for having bro culture, right?
Right, but that also meant that most of the engineers were sleeping on bunk beds in their offices. Right. So there was that weird dichotomy, and that they felt, in with the in-group, like smarter than everybody else, just like we did. I want to kind of refer back to that idea of like doing more than everyone else. I refer to that as like being the apex predator in the aquarium, right? and looking at the ways my behavior showed up, and looking back, with some regret and shame. And yet that's why I still stand here in this space, because I always knew that it could be different. I always knew that it could be different. Just because it wasn't different for me doesn't necessarily mean it can't be different for others.
Yeah.
So, and again, I want to kind of get back to this values thing. So why do you think it's so important for hospitality professionals to connect to their personal values as opposed to being in love with the allure or the dream of what it could be?
I call that the facade. We spend a lot of time on the facade, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what's going on with you. The guest has to have a great experience. And look, there's absolutely some strength and validity to those things. Again, it's about the balance, and it's about understanding where those lines and those boundaries are. And so for me, you need that North Star. You need something that when the shit hits the fan, and it always hits the fan, that keeps us both grounded and anchored and aspirational and motivated and working towards something with meaning and purpose and a sense of belonging, right? And so I think it's important for us to do that. Now, the problem is, and I mentioned it, is we put these words on paper, and we have this big, long employee company handbook that has a whole bunch of legalese and doesn't say shit. And nobody they sign the 47th page and they never look at it again. And it is not, again, a part of the business model, the things that we do day in and day out, right? And so we talk about the culture is the byproduct a lot of times of having those core values,
without a doubt.
Creates. And culture is such a buzzword, and it can mean absolutely nothing, and I think quite often it does. Culture, I like one of the statements that I heard was, culture are the decisions that's made when nobody's looking.
Sure.
I really like that kind of, and there's lots of riffs on that, but I like that, where it's like, We take responsibility and accountability for that culture because we believe in it, and we work on it and in it, right? They're not just words that are up on a wall somewhere or on a piece of paper. So I think that's the core principle of core values, of having something that, again, keeps you grounded and aspirational at the same time.
Jim, thoughts, reflections?
Yeah, I mean, culture is what happens when you're not around, right? Like exactly like you said. And the values thing, I mean, I got to go back to, Jensen, something you were talking about a minute ago, when someone, that concept of, I don't want to be like you, or I don't want your job, or I don't want your, you know, that what you were presenting as the right way to do it. And when I say you, I don't mean you specifically. I mean a lot of us.
And me specifically.
Yeah, and me specifically too.
And me specifically.
I will never forget a conversation I had with a rock star that was on my team at one point. And I thought this person was probably going to take my job one day, right? They were just so good at what they were doing, you know, climbing the ladder, moving forward. The whole team loved working with them. And one day she comes and sits me down, and I was the GM of the restaurant at the time. And she was, you know, moving forward in the program. And she just goes, I'm done. I quit. No notice, done. And I went, like, totally caught off guard. I said, what do you mean? She goes, I don't want your job.
That's it.
And I said, what do you mean? I have a great job. I love my job. I make good money. I have good flexibility. I work Monday to Friday. I had, in my opinion, a pretty good thing going. And she said, you call me every night to ask me how things are going. You come in here every weekend, one of the 2 days to check in, you know, and I was doing that because I cared. And I was doing that because I loved my job. And I was doing that because I believed that it was helping the team. But what I was showing them was that this is a 24-hour-a-day job. And if you don't approach it that way, you probably won't be successful. And immediately I went, you know, the values of what people are looking for in moving forward in that, you know, in that model, how I'm presenting that it's not working. And that was a big wake up call for me. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because it reminded me of that conversation that I was like,
devastating too, when you like realize that, like, damn it, I thought I was the good guy. I think about that Dark Knight quote all the time. Die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Right.
And I have had to go, shit, I was the villain in many chapters of this story. And it's hard to separate those, like emotionally, it's hard to separate those. Because when I think about some of those moments of toxicity towards myself or towards others, I'm like, we also like did so many good things, and we raised money for charity, and we introduced people to new cultures and new cuisines and new techniques. And I have some long lasting friendships and amazing memories and life moments. And I was a fucking asshole. How do you reconcile those? So we try and pretend like those were the good old days. Can't stand that. The good old days are just an excuse that we don't want to work towards anything else. We think we already accomplished. We already did the thing. We're playing the infinite game, to Simon Sinek's points again. We're playing the infinite game, not just a finite game. We have to think about the legacy of what we're trying to create and pass on. And before we go on the next thing, I just got to say, Aaron Fish and Jemiah Thomas are fucking rock stars and superstars. Whatever you want to be, you are it. Because I love this. I mean, I see like YouTube clips and Simon Sinek.
Oh yeah, man,
it's awesome.
Guys dropping nuggets. Like I absolutely love the engagement right now.
It's the community, man. It is the community that we are creating. Our internal community.
I'm gonna get in their stuff. I'm gonna tag them on some annoying attributes posts on TikTok at some point. They're gonna go, all right, it's enough. It's enough.
So I just, you know what, Jensen, the takeaway that and Adam, I just want to
please,
last comment on that. The takeaway that, and I think for anyone who's listening to this, there's good value in this conversation, because the takeaway that I had from that conversation, big picture, that changed a lot of the way I approach things in my ops career. I thought I was showing support by calling the restaurant every night, seeing how are things going. And they perceived it as though I was not trustworthy and micromanaging and had no life. And I found out after that they used to joke about, what time is Jim going to call tonight? What time did Jim finish dinner today?
Yeah.
Well, Jim eats dinner at 6 o'clock because he calls us at 7. They used to joke joke about that stuff, and I didn't know about it, and I thought I was showing support, and they thought I was showing lack of trust.
Yeah, like sad Jim, right?
Yeah. Get a life, Jim.
So I feel I need to kind of, and again, that's why I get so juiced up in these conversations, because I get that, we could go on and on and on. And the show is about solutions and things that people can start working towards. By the way, I wanted to say thank you, Jensen, for calling out elderhood in our community. And that you place yourself there, because I also place myself there willingly, because I know for so many years that nobody gave a shit about elderhood. Burn him down, get him out. I want his job, right? And so it's both an act of courage, and it's also an act of faith, and it's also an act of love for the industry that we all still love. And I'm finding more and more and more with my particular coaching clients that it's only until they're actually grounded in their core values, not only like what they stand for, but why they stand for and how they stand for it, that they can actually make a clear decision about what organization to be with. So we always talk about mission statements with businesses and things of that sort. And and I always look for like, okay, so in these postings, like, where are their core values? Where is it in the job listing? Are they trumpeting those, or it's kind of like down at the very bottom underneath, must keep a clean uniform? Do you know what I'm saying? Like companies that are completely clueless about what people are actually looking for, which is the narrative to fall in love with, the narrative to pair with. Like, I need a reason to be here. Yeah. Give me a reason. Give me some I don't think it's unreasonable, but unless they know what they stand for, they're going to fucking fall for anything.
Yeah, we should talk. We need to do another show on interviewing, because we've shifted. What we call now a job description is called a job story in our world.
There you go.
Write a compelling story, and we start with I keyword write because I recipe write.
Right.
And so this is a very actionable thing that anybody can take. I talk about this with hospitality professionals. What are you good at? Again, deployed against something we're bad at. We're not very good writers quite often. That's why we love Bourdain, because he was. And what we need to be able to do is articulate. What we can do is build a recipe. So I keyword write. I don't write sentences. I have no structure. I'm an idiot. I have 2 writers on our team that have to like rewrite everything. What I do is keywords. What are the keywords? The core values. What do I want to express in this moment, in this story I'm trying to tell, in this job, in this business plan, whatever it is? What is the story I'm trying to tell? Exactly. And I write 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 keywords. Those are core values that then from that's your center of the plate item. Then build around that. All right, let me take this one word. I wrote 8 words, but these 3 words are really the core words that I want to get to. I want to tell my story around these 3 words. I'll write a sentence for each of them. I can do that. I can write a sentence, and I won't even sequence them. I'll just write a sentence. What that is like, okay, here's now, I want 2 ounces of this, 4 ounces of this, and 3 ounces of this. I can start to build my recipe that way. And then I'll sequence them together and say, if I was going to tell a story, what's the arc of that story? Right. And I'm going to start with this word, this word, this word. And then I'll fill in everything to composite a complete story, a complete narrative, a complete job story, job description. And so that's a really actionable thing. Keyword writing is a very great way to express what you do. Write it down. Just like you have that little notepad that you pull out and write all the notes that Chef just told you about how to execute that dish flawlessly. Write down, highlight, underline, circle some of those keywords, because that's going to be the foundation of who you are and the type of businesses that we're going to build in the future.
So the importance is strategically deployed, right? Must be core to the business, as in systems and actionable items becomes easy, whether that's a checklist or whatever it is. Like a day 2 orientation where everybody gets walked around and really nurtured, and like they know where everything's at, and that as opposed to here's your recipe book, get the fuck off the line.
Yeah.
And there are going to be things that we think that are going to be like that are aspirational right now that we'd like to see, yet we can't actually fit them into the business from an operation standpoint. And then I'm also hearing that, as a professional, it's really important to understand what's most important for you, and that changes. 6 years ago, your children might not necessarily have been like getting up in the morning, having breakfast might not have been a big thing, but then things change. And so to stay clear-eyed about like what matters, then you can actually start adjusting not only your expectations, but the things that you're looking for, like what you want to do. Am I getting you correct?
Yeah, and what's interesting is what you're talking about is we kind of talk about the 4 axis is what I think about the way that we work. And so I've talked about the business model. We've restructured so many things. Like that's actually the easy part. Like we know how to make the numbers work. Andrew knows how to make the numbers work. We can move things around that chessboard all day long. That's actually the easy part. Then there's the 3 other axes that are really difficult because they're humans. They're emotional, right? We have to convince the bosses, leaders, managers, owners, investors that this shit matters. That's really difficult because in the past it didn't matter and we had successful businesses. So why should it matter now? We have to convince the public that they should spend their money at places that invest in things that matter, not the ones that have just more shiny shit than somebody else.
Correct. Absolutely.
And finally, we have to convince ourselves that we're worth investing in to that level. And that is the most difficult part about all of these things that we're talking about. And so unless we start to break through those stigmas, those boundaries that we've set for ourselves, we're never going to break through to what it means to be whole in this industry and be able to invest in the things that we value. And where we spend money does in fact show what we value. Where we spend time does in fact matter. And a breakthrough, a lot of times when we're talking about mission statement, vision statement, core values, they're like, that's some corporate bullshit.
Right.
They just throw some words out there to fake you out, to be able to get you into their meat grinder. Right. That's not us. We're independent. We do things our way. I'm not wasting time on all those fake words. I'm just about the work. I'm about the business. I'm about the food. That's all that matters. Just take care of the food and everything, and the people will come. That's just never actually been true, and not true now. If it's only about what's on the plate, then you are commoditized, and you will only be valued by what's on the plate. But if it's about who gets it to the plate, how we get it to the plate, well, then our value is exponential. Then we become pillars of both culture and commerce in our community. Then other industries, not the Google of XYZ industry, other industries be like, I'm the hospitality XYZ of my industry, because I understand the value that creates internally and externally for my business, for my employees, for my customers and clients. And that's the opportunity we have, because hospitality is unlike any other dynamic in business that you can imagine, because we're in the relationship business, which is very, very different, very unique. And other industries are trying to look to us now, and we have to set an example.
Doug Newhook is just saying, great shit, Jensen Cummings. Thank you. Can't wait for the hiring story episode.
Let's go.
If we're gonna put a pin in the hiring, because I love that, because a lot of what I'm doing also is like it's like this weird interview prep. I have a call right after this. I'm so excited about it. But I also specifically, if it's okay with you, is to schedule something in the future to talk about the axis, the 4 points of that axis, and strategies around how we can, not only as professionals, but as operators, actually punch through those limitations. Because I get that, in talking to 60, 70, 80 chefs and hospitality professionals, one of the biggest things that they continue to talk about is this feeling of being undervalued by the customer.
Ooh.
Right? And like catering customers who are coming in trying to beat them down on price, or like other stories like that. I mean, there's a victim story in that as well, and I get that. However, to assist others to gain their sovereignty, so that, this is my price, this is what I do, is a powerful thing at kind of resetting the table, as it was, or on this show, flipping the table.
Don't negotiate on price, negotiate on value.
Always on value. You never take away, you always add.
Always, always, always on value. We cannot diminish what we do. You can't self-commoditize. Unfortunately, we've self-commoditized. We've taken a picture of our food, put it on Instagram, said, come buy my shit. It's transactional. We have to flip that narrative. And for, who was it on LinkedIn? I just see LinkedIn user on my end. Thank you.
That was Doug Newhook.
I love doing great shit. That's my whole goal, is to be fight of the night anytime I show up, for sure. Hiring story tidbit. I do something now that nobody else is willing to do, and I do it myself because I want to prove the concept. Every single interview, first interview is a 10-minute phone interview. I ask 3 questions, they ask 3 questions, and then we decide if we feel good about a next interview. Perfect. I do a 20-second video for every single person that I'm going to do that initial interview for. I say, hi, my name's Jensen. I'm excited to talk with you. I saw from your resume that you did this, worked here, did that, love that, excited about that, can't wait to hear about it. And I spend that time and effort. The amount of people, I don't know, 75% of people, over dozens and dozens and dozens that I've done this test model on, have thanked me, going, wow, that was great that you sent that video. And I know that a high percentage of people who show up to that interview might have skipped your interview because you didn't take that tiny little step that I'm willing to take to humanize this process. And so many people tell me that's a waste of time. Most of them aren't going to show up. Yeah, but what if 4 more people, 6 more people do show up that weren't going to show up, that you hire, that become the linchpin to the future success of your business? Is that worth a 20-second video? I believe it is, and most people do not. That's the difference. That's what we'll talk about in hiring stories. So
oh my God, that's so good. Because again, it's extending this boundary of communication. In that, do you want to hire people? Or you want to hire the right people, right? And very often that energy around like, hey, listen, I'm going to take 20 seconds to do a video with this person. Do they always work out? I don't know what the percentages are, but I could certainly feel in my own heart, someone send me a little video about that and go like, no, dude, I want to be there. I want to be there. I don't want to be over here. So Chef Jensen Cummings, thank you very, very much. Jim Taylor.
Honor.
Jim, you're just listening, dude. Like
that's what he said beforehand. He's like, I can't wait to listen. I was like, well, I'll talk a lot, I'm sure.
All right. One last piece of business before we go. Oh, no, there's actually programming notes. So upcoming shows, Thanksgiving. Yeah, you're not off. We're not off. So Jim and I, we're going to hold down the fort and we're going to do an episode, servant leadership, really? And then we've got Michelle Moreno from QAB Leadership, Jennifer Kern from Restaurants Reinvented. And on 12/15, we've got Kelly Featheringham from Kelly Feathering Leadership Coaching. We love her book, ABC. Fantastic. And I just wanted to say, very, very lastly, that this has been coming on for a long time, but actually, Chef Life Radio or cheflifecoaching.com is finally done, finally complete. And I'd like to debut the only online community dedicated to serving chefs and hospitality professionals who want to enjoy their careers without sacrificing their lives in the new hospitality culture. Come join the Chef Life Brigade. It's open, cheflifebrigade.com, and we're going to be celebrating that with a live stream next Tuesday, November 22nd at 6 p.m. with the British Bourdain. This dude, he's crazy. He's good copy, man. What can I say? Jordan Clement, and he's a fantastic chef and doing some really great stuff. And he's got a very powerful story to tell. So that's on my side. Jim, any last words?
I think that we could have, we just spent an hour and we could have spent 5. So Jensen, I just appreciate you coming on. You've always got incredible nuggets and, I think you win fight of the night today.
Let's go. I'm here for it. Appreciate you guys. Everything that you're doing doesn't go unnoticed across the industry. We need more people willing to speak, to create platforms, to bring more voices in the conversation. So I'm just grateful. And if I spark one person today to go out, do their thing, tell their story, shift their approach, believe in themselves, it's a huge fucking win for me.
Jensen, when you guys were doing the 86 challenge in Best Served, I just want to kind of end with this. I had the opportunity to either submit an article or sponsor articles as Chef Life Radio. And I love to write, as anybody who knows me knows that. And I very consciously took a sponsorship position because I wanted to provide an opportunity for folks who maybe are unpracticed to having their voice heard, right? Providing an opportunity for someone to say, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm going to write this anyway because there's something inside me that's speaking to me. And I think that that's an integral part of elderhood. Like, yes, we hold a lot of knowledge, but what's most important for us is holding space for that next generation, those leaders who are coming up who may not necessarily, agree with what we're doing. But, it's got to be a safe space for all of us to speak or what the hell are we doing here?
Respect.
Love you. Thank you very much, everybody. This has been another episode of Turning the Table.